Mao Zedong proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of China. After the founding of the country, he did not immediately aim for socialism. He aimed for a gradual socialization. Let us go back in history. After the Opium War, the Republic of China was forced to sign an unequal treaty with the great powers. The Republic of China was a semi-colony of those countries. During this period, capitalist economies came into existence through trade. This was only along the coast where trading ports were located. As a whole, feudal society centered on landlordism still remained strong. Such a chaotic situation continued. It was not realistic to suddenly convert the Republic of China to socialism. The Communist Party established an intermediate stage before the transition to socialism. They wanted to gradually transition the Republic of China to socialism. The idea put forward in this intermediate stage is new democracy. The People's Republic of China was in its early stages of growth. With the Communist Party at the center, they will develop industry together with workers. They work with farmers to develop agriculture. They develop politics together with the intelligentsia. They develop the economy along with patriotic capitalization. They aim to become such a country. Let us look at mainland China at this time. It could not yet be said that the border civil war had completely ended. The nationalist government still had some control over the area. Chiang Kai-shek retired as president. He moved from place to place, strengthening his defenses. Li Zongren is acting president. He was negotiating with the Communist Party in order to survive. But his efforts were in vain. The nationalist government was gradually cornered. Li Zongren fled to Hong Kong due to illness and then to the United States. Meanwhile, Chiang Kai-shek was preparing to fight to the end in Chongqing. The People's Liberation Army hunted him down. He abandoned Chongqing and retreated. He eventually escaped to Taiwan. Thus, the nationalist government lost its base. They made Taipei their de facto capital. They decided to move the government to Taipei. Chiang Kai-shek was re-elected as president in the vacant position. In this way, Chiang Kai-shek allowed the Republic of China government to continue in Taiwan. He set about reshaping the Chinese Nationalist Party. He began to advocate a counterattack on the continent. Meanwhile, the government of mainland China insisted on liberating Taiwan. The conflict between the Nationalist Party and the Communist Party continued across the Taiwan Strait. Both claimed to be the ones who would unify China. An era has begun in which two Chinas coexist side by side. At that time, labor unions from various Asian countries gathered in Beijing to hold a conference. It is the World Federation of Trade Unions Asia and Oceania regional meeting. Representatives from 13 countries participated in the conference. Labor movement activity reports and exchanges of opinions were held. Among them, his speech attracted particular attention. At the opening ceremony, China's representative Liu Shaoqi gave a speech. Liu Shaoqi, representing the chairman, said, "It is a colonial and anti-colonial liberation movement in Asia. As in China, it must be carried out by armed struggle." He called for a struggle against imperialism rule. This speech marked a shift in China's stance towards international communism. China became the center of revolutionary and labor movements in Asia. China began to actively support anti-colonial movements around the country. The Communist Party drove the Nationalist Party to Taiwan. They decided that they had made progress in pacifying the entire country of China. At this time, Mao Zedong left Beijing. He traveled to Moscow by private train. China's foreign policy made clear the principle that China belonged to the Eastern Bloc. Mao Zedong went to Moscow to establish relations with the Soviet Union. The purpose of this visit was to negotiate with the Soviet Union. He stayed there for about 3 months. However, when Mao Zedong arrived in Moscow, Stalin's attitude towards him was surprisingly cold. Stalin didn't trust Mao Zedong very much. He had signed the Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship and Alliance with the nationalist government led by Chiang Kai-shek. As a result, their first meeting was not a friendly one. However, Chiang Kai-shek was defeated in the Civil War and Mao Zedong was victorious. Stalin too was forced to seriously address the China issue. Negotiations between Mao Zedong and Stalin finally began. At this time, Stalin was most concerned about this. That is to avoid the outbreak of World War III at all costs. That is if he supports the People's Republic of China. He was worried about the deterioration of relations with the United States. On the other hand, for Mao Zedong, these negotiations were crucial as they would determine the fate of the new China. The People's Republic of China is still in its infancy. He was determined to make this negotiation a success. Mao Zedong summoned Zhou Enlai to Moscow. He continued to negotiate tenaciously. As a result, he was successful in concluding this treaty. It is the Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship, Alliance and Mutual Assistance. At this time, the Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship and Alliance that had been concluded with the nationalist government had been abolished. He added the word reciprocal to the new treaty. This is to emphasize a more equal relationship between the two countries. This treaty envisaged Japan and countries allied with Japan. That is to prevent invasion by the United States and other countries. China and the Soviet Union formally formed an alliance. A full-scale Cold War structure also emerged in Asia. At about the same time, Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh visited the Soviet Union. We're talking about Vietnam for the first time in a while. Let us look back at the situation in Vietnam during this period. World War II ended. The Japanese military rule ended. Ho Chi Minh saw the power vacuum as an opportunity. Ho Chi Minh declared Vietnam's independence. Then France, the former colonial power, returned. France was once again trying to establish colonial rule. France was in conflict with the Ho Chi Minh regime of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. The United States took notice of this situation. The United States was shocked by the establishment of the People's Republic of China. America believed it had to contain the spread of communism. The French were trying to contain Ho Chi Minh, who was influenced by communism. The United States decided to support the French in their struggle. France supported the Bao Dai government. The United States recognized the so-called state of Vietnam. In response, China and the Soviet Union recognized the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. Such was the international situation. Ho Chi Minh traveled secretly to the Soviet Union on behalf of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh secured support from China and the Soviet Union. He tried to place Vietnam within the Cold War structure. However, as mentioned earlier, the Soviet Union did not think so. The Soviet Union was hesitant to get strongly involved even in the China issue. Naturally, the Soviet Union was extremely cautious about providing aid to Vietnam. With Mao Zedong's help, Ho Chi Minh managed to meet with Stalin. He only received recognition from the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. He was unable to get Stalin to promise military support. Stalin said that supporting Vietnam was a task for China. He made clear his position that China should be primarily responsible for the Vietnam issue. Mao Zedong and Ho Chi Minh concluded this meeting. They discussed their next steps after returning to Beijing. The main topic of discussion was how China would support Vietnam. At first, Mao Zedong was not very proactive. He eventually promised to send in military advisors and other measures. The Soviet Union and China were wary of fully supporting Vietnam. Inside Vietnam, Vietnamese people were saying, China's People's Liberation Army will help Vietnam. They will drive out the French army. Such expectations were far removed from reality. Ho Chi Minh concluded this series of talks. Vietnam did not receive sufficient support from them. But we need their support. Vietnam wants to increase Soviet and Chinese involvement. To do this, he decided that Vietnam should make its position clear. He pursued a reform policy modeled on China. The establishment of the People's Republic of China brought about major changes in the international situation. It happened on June 25, 1950. An event occurred that would shake up this trend even more. The Korean War broke out. A major war broke out in a neighboring country. Shortly after its birth, China was caught up in the turbulent whirlwind of the international community.